Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Camel, and more importantly, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Detective series. A series in which we investigate, curate, speculate, hypothesize, theorize, and quite often, simply highlight and discuss cool, interesting, and hidden things that can be found within the Elder Scrolls games. Today's investigation will begin in Coral, and with the help of an abduction, a cult, an Easter egg, and a pinch of time travel, we will be led, of course, to the looming question of who are the Deep Ones and what do they want. But for now, let's begin our journey, which is one of mystery. The city of Coral, a peaceful, forested and rather attractive area, at least through my eyes, with no signs of disruption or hardship. Nice place. Let's visit the local merchant at Northern Good and Trade. Oh, who's this?
Hello, I don't think we've met. Are you new in town?
Yes, I am. Pleased to meet you.
Likewise. I'm always glad to meet someone new. Welcome. I'm sure my mother would be glad to meet you as well.
Your mother?
My mother owns this shop. She would be glad of your business.
My business is none of her business. Regardless, we have this mother-daughter duo running the trade shop. Nice enough. After this meeting, however, we will leave Coral for 3 days, frolicking in the many fields of Cyrodiil. After gallivanting across the gloriously grassed province, and once returning to Coral, we'll visit our Argonian friends once more. Well, one of them at least.
I don't mean to impose, but I'm hoping you can help me. My daughter, Dar-Ma, is missing, and I don't know what to do.
Missing daughter? Why? Don't look at me.
That's right. My daughter Dar-Ma never came back from Hackdirt. I'm dreadfully worried something may have happened to her. Can you help?
Yes, I will help you find Dar-Ma.
I can't thank you enough for your kindness. She was supposed to make a delivery to Etira Moslin in Hackdirt, so I would start there. In case it may be useful, she was with Blossom, her horse, I mean. Dar-Ma loves that animal and would never willingly abandon her.
What's this Hackdirt you speak of?
A rather isolated village south of Coral. We do some business with the trader there. Small volume, but she pays well. Normally I make the deliveries, but I wasn't feeling well, so Dar-Ma insisted on going this time. I do hope nothing has happened to her.
A missing daughter, a horse called Blossom, and a mother in need. Alright, looks like we'll be heading south to Hackdirt. In the dark and deep weald beneath Coral, we will find it. Shrouded in verdant green and fog, we will find it, Hackdirt. A rather charming little township, at least at first sight. It doesn't take long before we are hit with the subtle and almost subconscious air of unease. While we breathe in the beautiful forest scent and soak in the scenic setting that is the town of Hackdirt. The oddly empty streets and town centre, the fact that there are no roads that actually lead here. A settlement of solidarity it seems. In Tamriel's capital, Cyrodiil, yet it still remains isolated. Do you hear that? Exactly. Not a single noise. All we can hear is the birds singing and the soft hushes of zephyrs caressing the trees. While comforting in groves and glades, the lullaby of nature sprinkles caution into our hearts while in this strange place, Hackdirt. We'll soon notice only a small portion of the buildings are livable, the rest appear to have been burnt or destroyed long ago, with no signs of attempts of rebuilding. The rest of the town seems nice enough though, but again, that intangible atmosphere still lingers, that renders us gazing over our shoulders every now and then. If we do poke around the town a tad, in the ruins of the burnt buildings we will find a horse, but this isn't just any old horse, nay. This is Blossom, the horse that belongs to Dar-Ma, the missing Argonian daughter. So she is here. She wouldn't leave Blossom behind after all. At this point, we'll realize that we're being followed. One of the townsfolk keeps a distance, but a constant distance. No matter where we go in the town, he will be there, watching. Adding to our unease and suspicion of this strange township, let's visit the innkeep at Moslin's Inn. Oh, what a bustling establishment. Sarcasm increased to 100. Time to have a chat with Vlanhonder Moslin.
We don't like strangers poking their noses into our business.
Alright, chill. What do you know of Dar-Ma?
Who? Nah, I haven't seen any young women around. Even if I had, why would I know anything about her going missing? Not that I'm saying I ever seen her, because I haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen the girl that we didn't mention was young or missing. Interesting. Definitely believe you, mate. Tell us about Hackdirt.
My grandfather built this place, not that it's any of your business. We've been down, but we got plans to bring back the good old days. You'll see.
Alright, that actually sounds pretty bloody ominous. Anyway, let's head next door to Moslin's Dry Goods. Let's duck in, shall we? The shop owner is Etira Moslin. She must be the sister of Vlanhonder Moslin, the guy that runs the inn. They have the same last name. Her shop looks like my cupboard every time I go to make soup. Out of stock. Vegetable stock. Anyway, Etira Moslin, Dar-Ma, where is she?
I don't know any Dar-Ma. If you're talking about that cursed Agonian swindler from Coral, I'd like to know where she is too.
What's her horse doing here then?
That's my horse. Owned it for years. Now either buy something or get out.
I see. Can I bite your trust? More on that later. So tell me about Hackdirt.
We scrape by. Not that we've ever had naught but trouble from outsiders like you. You'd best be moving on if you know what's good for you.
Who is this brethren?
That's none of your concern, outsider.
Alright, I get it. I'll leave your shop.
Know anything about the stranger?
Nope.
We'll talk later tonight at the gathering.
The gathering? Sounds magic. Okay, something is going on in this town here. Dar-Ma's definitely in a bad spot. There's gotta be someone around here who can help us. What about this guy, Jiv?
Yes?
Know anything about Dar-Ma?
Shh. We can't talk here. They'll get suspicious. The girl is in danger. Meet me tonight after dark in my house. I'll leave the door unlocked. Don't be late.
Okay, perfect. Jiv can help us. We'll have to wait until nightfall, though. Why don't we check out the rest of the town in the meanwhile? Well, all that's left to inspect is this chapel, the Chapel of the Brethren. On the inside, it seems okay. Normal, nice little holy place, away from the worries of the world. We will notice there is not a hint of the 9 divines, though. If not the divines, then who do they worship? Oh, I think we're about to find out. This book here is called the Bible of the Deep Ones. Given to me by the Chief of the Deep Ones, he taught me his language and his runes. This is the ancient law of his people, which we shall follow from now until forever. Signed in the presence of the 12 witnesses. Vlanhonder Moslin. Signed on the 3rd era, year 345, which is 88 years ago from the time that the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion takes place. So 88 years ago, the people of Hackdirt began to worship the Deep Ones and follow their law. This guy that signed the book, Vlanhonder Moslin, must be the Moslin grandfather that built this town. And if we flip the page, oh dear, Daedric runes. 3 full pages of Daedric runes. This must be the law of the Deep Ones that the people of Hackdirt will follow from now until forever. Don't worry, I'll explain what this Bible actually says later on in the video. For now, we will have to save Dar-Ma as she is in danger, and it seems to have gotten a whole lot more serious. Excellent, night has fallen. We must meet with Jiv in his house.
You came. Good. I don't have much time. I have to get to the gathering before I missed.
Where's Dar-Ma?
You have to believe me. I didn't know what they were planning. They want to bring back the Deep Ones. I thought I did too, but she's so innocent. They've got her down in the caverns. They're going to sacrifice her, you understand? You've got to save her. Here, take this key. It'll open any of the trapdoors down to the caves. Every house in town has one. The one in Moslin's Inn is your best bet, nearest where she's being held, the middle of the night, when everyone's at the gathering. Good luck. You will save her, won't you? I gotta go now.
Whoa, before you go, I've got some questions. What are these caverns?
Caves run all beneath the town. Some natural, some dug over the years since we found the Deep Ones. Every house has an entrance now. What's
with this freaky town of yours, Hackdirt?
I was only a boy when the soldiers came. We hid, vowed revenge, but the Deep Ones never came back. Etira, she's the one who found them old books, learned the runes, how to speak them again. But they want blood, she says, or they'll not help us.
Okay, what's the Brethren?
Those of us who've changed the most, we call the Brethren. Live down in the caves, to be nearer the Deep Ones. They don't like the sunlight much. Dangerous, too. You'll want to avoid them if you can help it.
Oh, Jesus. Alright, who are the Deep Ones?
I don't know much. Never seen them myself. Our grandfathers first found them, I think, digging in the mines. They helped us, made us rich, but there was a terrible price. Blood. And worse. Good luck, stranger. You get that girl out of this terrible place.
Okay, wow, that is a lot of new information to take in, but we'll have to come back to that later. For now, let's go and save that poor Argonian lass Dar-Ma. Let's use the Moslin Inn trapdoor access. Down here, in Hackdirt's Caverns, we will find Dar-Ma, locked in a cage.
Please, let me out of here. You must help me escape. I think these creatures plan to do something horrible to me tonight. Thank you. Hurry, we need to get out of here, quick! Thank you. Let's get out of here.
Go, 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 go. We have escaped with Dar-Ma and Blossom safely straight back to Coral. Back to the safe, non-cultist walls of the Great Oak City. We'll take Dar-Ma back to Sydney as her mother.
Thank you. Thank you. I can never repay you for your gift of my daughter's life. But you have my friendship and gratitude to the end of my days.
It was our pleasure. I wonder how Dar-Ma is.
My hero.
Your hero? Who are you? KVATA? So this is all well and good. Dar-Ma is back home, safe, but we have some serious investigating to do now. Firstly, let's get back to Hackdirt and poke around those caverns a bit more. Down here, we will find plenty of these freaks, these brethren, who will be immediately hostile towards us. They all look very similar, all wear the same stuff and all have the same mace or club as a weapon. Jiv did mention that the Brethren are the people of Hackdirt who have changed the most. They live down here to be close to the Deep Ones. It was made clear that the Brethren were going to sacrifice Dar-Ma to the Deep Ones, and it looks like that she wouldn't have been the first. As we can see, there are plenty of bones around the place. In fact, the people of Hackdirt have been making sacrifices for a while. 88 years, I'd imagine. As Vlanhonder Moslin does state that his grandfather built this town, even though Hackdirt is much, much older. Jiv also tells us that their grandparents found the Deep Ones, so the people of Hackdirt have been worshipping the Deep Ones for 88 years. And not for the better. Hackdirt was once a much larger settlement, sized between a town and a city. 88 years ago, miners in the tunnels beneath the town discovered entities, whom they referred to as the Deep Ones. The citizens of Hackdirt bowed down to the Deep Ones and began worshipping them, even going as far as converting their chapel from the 9 divines to one for the Deep Ones. In time, the residents of Hackdirt became overtly hostile to anyone in or around the town. In time, they would start committing crimes against outsiders. After several sacrificial murders in and around the town, the Emperor grew tired of the endless struggle to keep Hackdirt's citizens in line with the law. Eventually, the Emperor sent the Imperial Legion into Hackdirt. They burned the town to the ground and massacred most of its citizens. Some of the buildings of the town were later rebuilt by the few who survived the cull. The inhabitants started to refer to anyone from outside the village as outsiders, and as we have witnessed, act in a vile and hostile manner towards such unwelcomed guests. But the town would never rise again to its former glory, and the Deep Ones that once made the town rich have disappeared, leaving the town of Hackdirt in this strange, burnt, abandoned cult-like state where they scowl at outsiders. But even with the Deep Ones seeming to have abandoned the township, the few citizens left still worship the Deep Ones with a religious fury rivaled by few. At 8 PM every night, we can witness the entire township making their way to the chapel of the Brethren. Of course, we'll sneak our way inside. They all sit there and watch Etira Moslin read phrases from the Bible of the Deep Ones. Does this mean the Deep Ones are back? Are they expecting their return? Perhaps that's why they stole Dar-Ma, a fresh sacrifice to finally bring them back. Jiv does tell us that Etira Moslin had learnt the language of the Deep Ones and said that they wanted blood. But I mean, is there any evidence that the Deep Ones actually exist? Well, after poking around the Hackdirt Caverns, we'll find no evidence of the Deep Ones, unfortunately. Just a cult of crazed dopes called the Brethren. But there is one thing. A little something I discovered while making my Oblivion's Easter egg video. There is a small tunnel that leads deeper underground. Not much though, as the roof has caved in. And if we listen, and listen very well, you'll hear, well, this. I have checked this, and that sound only exists in the Hackdirt Caverns. It appears nowhere else in the game. And boy oh boy does it sound big, scary, and evil. Here it is again, just for clarification. And that, my friends, is proof that the Deep Ones exist. Sadly, we can't see or find them, as the cave has fallen through, blocking our path. Now, with all of that pretext and understanding of how much the Deep Ones can affect a townsfolk, how powerful they must be, it's time to do our best to figure out who the Deep Ones are and what do they want. Before we can answer these questions, however, we need to understand that Hackdirt and the Deep Ones are an Easter egg, and that the Bible of the Deep Ones is a reference to an already existing Easter egg. It's a bit intense, but will be worth it in the end. So we have an entire town and plot based on a book, and within that Easter egg is a book that is a reference to an older Elder Scrolls Easter egg, which is also a book. It's an absolute mess, but I'll explain it all and it will all make sense shortly. Understanding both of these details will help us draw parallels between the two and will grant us insight and understanding into the theories of the Deep Ones. So firstly, Hackdirt and the Deep Ones are completely based on the H.P. Lovecraft story called A Shadow over Innsmouth. The quest we get to save Dar-Ma from Hackdirt is called A Shadow over Hackdirt. In the novel, a man visits an isolated and almost deserted town. The remaining citizens look odd, with queerly shaped heads, flat noses, and bulging eyes, which is exactly what the Brethren of Hackdirt look like. Weird heads, flat noses, and big, buggy, bulging eyes. In the novel, A Shadow over Innsmouth, the townsfolk worship entities called the Deep Ones, who bring prosperity to the town. Of course, we can see those parallels with Hackdirt, as clear as day. In the novel, the townsfolk slowly over time morph into the Deep Ones, who are strange fishmen-like creatures. But of course, part of the morphing process is the weird look of bulging eyes and so on. And what is it that Jiv says about the Brethren?
Those of us who've changed the most, we call the Brethren. Live down in the caves, to be nearer the Deep Ones.
The ones who have changed the most stay underground to be with the Deep Ones. I doubt the Hackdirt Brethren would actually transform into Deep Ones, but it's an obvious nod to the Lovecraft story. Again, in the novel, there is also a church in honor of the Deep Ones' deity, and that church is called the Esoteric Order of Dagon. So as we can see, there are many similarities drawn from the Shadow over Innsmouth that have been implemented into Hackdirt. And the second thing we need to understand is the Bible of the Deep Ones. This is very important for coming to conclusions about various theories as to who the Deep Ones are, and that conclusion will lead you to what do they want. So the Bible of the Deep Ones is a book that contains the lore of the Deep Ones. Not only that, but it is written in the runes of the Deep Ones. If we turn the page, we can clearly see that these runes are Daedric runes. Of course, this will lead us to the conclusion that the Deep Ones are Daedra, or have some connection to a Daedric prince. More on that later. However, can we translate these Daedric runes? Yes, we can. Once the entire book has been translated, we will discover something very strange, and something that will add another layer of confusion to this all. The Bible of the Deep Ones translates into a text that is identical to that of the KVATA KVAKIS, which is a book within the Elder Scrolls. and I do believe it is the only known text to have been written by a Sload, the infamous necromancer of Strosmakai, Nagasta, who is encountered during the Elder Scrolls adventure Redguard. Now, the book he wrote, the Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS, is actually an Easter egg, and I'm not sure if it should be taken too seriously. Therefore, I'm not sure if translating the Daedric runes into a Sload book should be taken seriously either. As we can see, the Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS is an absolute jumble of rubbish, but there is a key to decoding it. Each AHK represents an E, each OIX represents an AUX, each SO represents an LA, each AUW represents an OJ, and each JHE represents an SI. Using this code, the Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS reveals that the text is actually written in Esperanto, which is an international auxiliary language invented in 1887. When this is then translated to English, it reads as such. And again, this is why I don't know how seriously this should be taken. The Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS reads as, and I quote, KVAKAVAK, also called KVATO, is the newsletter or something similar of the La Ranatoj, in brackets the small frogs, close brackets. It is sent to paying members of other individuals who, in some way, are involved in La Ranatoj's activities. In it, there firstly is information about the locations of the monthly meetings, but of course also concerning the latest activities of the club. Sometimes it also includes other educating or entertaining material. The internet-based KVAKO, in brackets, email and web versions, close brackets, are on one hand another distribution channel for the contents of the paper version. But on the other hand, not surprisingly, the contents of the different versions cannot and even must not always be 100% the same. For instance, in little circulating paper versions, you can publish illustrations that for copyright reasons cannot be used on the internet. Yet, on the other hand, the low costs of the internet versions lift the space limits and allow more content, not to mention being always on date. These circumstances influence the web-based KVATO, which will also serve as the general homepage of La Ranatoj. And I end quote. So yeah, at this point we're 4 languages deep, Daedric to Sload to Esperanto to English. Of course, we'll need to decide at which level to stop translating and stick with a certain language to then build conclusions as to who the deep ones are. Do we take it at face value as Daedric runes written by Daedra? Or did the developers intend for it to be read as a Sload text? But if so, then why only translate it once? Why not translate it 3 times and end up with an excerpt about an email? Again, the Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS is obviously an Easter egg, because when decoded, the contents of which reference, once again, the internet and emails. But now that we do know all of that information, let's get into the theories. There are 3 main theories, one of which has 2 sub-theories. Firstly, let's get this one out of the way. Some believe that the Deep Ones are the Dwemer. The main basis of this theory is the name, the Deep Ones. And this is actually a little bit of a communication issue. With Elven race names, the mer at the end of the name means elf to the rest of Tamriel, but to elves, mer just means ones, equals. For example, Altmer, Bosmer, Dunmer, Dwemer, Orzimer all end with mer, and these are all elven races. But when it's elves speaking about elves, mer just means ones, equals, other people, mer, ones, because they are speaking from an elven perspective with elven context. So the elf part is already clarified. So the Dwemer are commonly known as the Deep Elves, but of course to another race of elf, Dwemer would just mean Deep Ones. As we can see in this book here, the elven names are translated to end with ones instead of elves. So to an ancient elven race, the Dwemer might be referred to as the Deep Ones, but in today's Tamriel probably not. They'd be referred to as the Deep Elves, or Dwemer. So would the Dwemer introduce themselves to the people of Hackdirt as the Deep Ones rather than the Dwemer or the Deep Elves? Maybe, but then of course the Dwemer have been missing from Tamriel for thousands of years, at this point at least. And would they return in a cavern under Cyrodiil, growling away like beasts, speaking and writing in Daedric language demanding blood sacrifice? No, And don't forget, the Dwemer didn't give two shakes of a dragon's tail about the Daedra or Aedra, so would they be using Daedric runes? No, of course not. Also, the Dwemer had strongholds in Daggerfall, Hammerfell, Morrowind, and Skyrim, not in Cyrodiil. In fact, there is no evidence of Dwemer ever being present in Cyrodiil, and I can guarantee this isn't the Dwemer's grand entrance to the province. If this was the Dwemer, why would they want blood sacrifice? That isn't something within the realm of their interests. So apart from a roughly translated archaic name, there is nothing to back up that this is the Dwemer. Now the second theory, the Deep Ones are the Sload. Of course, this theory is built off of the fact that the Bible of the Deep Ones, once translated from Daedric runes, reads identically to the only known Sload text, the Nagasta KVATA KVAKIS. So did the developers make this a cryptic Sload text disguised in Daedric runes on purpose? Or did they just grab some other random piece of text from the game and slap it into the Bible? Well, if we go with the first theory that the developers intentionally hid this Sload book into the Bible of the Deep Ones, then yes, we could assume that the Deep Ones are the Sload. They have also been known to make pacts and dealings with the Daedra and Daedric princes, so a Sload knowing the Daedric language wouldn't be out of the question. Therefore, a Sload text being written and taught to the people of Hackdirt in a Daedric language is again a viable piece of evidence that the Deep Ones are in fact the Sload. The Sload also begin their lives as tiny, amorphous, non-sentient grubs that eventually evolve into squishy, aquatic octopus-looking creatures known as pollwiggles during adolescence. So in a sense, the Sload are rather like the fishmen in the Shadow over Innsmouth story. The Sload also like water and are always based near water. But if that's the case, then why would a Sload, who loves water, be underground and pretty much as far away from the coastline as possible, in the heart of Cyrodiil? That is a good question that hamstrings the Sload theory a little bit. To the Sload's credit though, they are masters of teleportation, and could teleport to and from the caverns under Hackdirt. Sload are also masters of necromancy and science, and quite often a deadly mix of the two. After all, they did create and release the Thracian Plague in the First Era, which wiped out more than half of Tamriel's population. One of the reasons the Sload are so hated and seldom seen. They have also been noted to use airships to carry massive amounts of corpses back to Thrace, and that an eerily large number of slaves are purchased by Sload merchants in Tyr. It's thought that the slaves are experimented on, killed, and revived as thralls. So the Sload are no strangers to enslaving other Tamrielic races, not in life, but in death as necrotic slaves and servants. This could explain the sacrifices that the people of Hackdirt have made to the Deep Ones, of course offering up humans to the Sload in return for wealth and prosperity. Although, if noted Sload behaviour and custom is to be taken into account, which it is going to be, then the Sload would want the bodies of the sacrificed for them to then perform their experiments on. And if we look around the caverns of Hackdirt, we'll find plenty of bones, meaning that the human sacrifices never left the cavern and their bodies remained here. This again would weaken the Sload argument a bit. Anywho, Jiv also mentions to us that the Brethren are those who have changed the most, mimicking the odd and changed appearance of the people who lived in Innsmouth in the H.P. Lovecraft novel. In that novel, the townsfolk look odd because they are slowly transforming into the Deep Ones, the strange fishmen. Could it be possible that the Sload have been experimenting with genetic mutations and racial metamorphosis, transforming the people of Hackdirt into Sload, or some abominable variant of the Sload? It is possible, and illuminates bridges between the Shadow over Innsmouth, the Brethren, and the Sload. After all, the Sload are known to experiment with such dark things. Jiv also mentions that the Deep Ones wanted blood, and worse. The blood could just mean sacrifices, or it could quite literally mean blood. Perhaps the Sload could use that for their experiments. But the bit that has a catch is the worst bit.
Blood. And worse.
Surely the worst bit would be being taken by the Sload and made an undead thrall, which isn't the case because all of the bodily remains are here in the Hackdirt Caverns. they were never taken away. So what could the worst bit be? Unless of course we are trying to apply something that simply doesn't apply because the deep ones aren't the slowed. While having holes in the theory, the slowed argument is a valid one. Now the third theory has two branches. One is a twig and the other is a big thick branch of the world tree. Both of these theories revolve around the Daedra and more specifically Daedric princes. The first one suspects that the Deep Ones are in fact a Daedra in the service of Mehrunes Dagon. The main backing of this theory is that in the H.P. Lovecraft story Shadow over Innsmouth, the deity of the Deep Ones is called Dagon. So, if the Deep Ones in the Elder Scrolls are in fact Daedra in service to Mehrunes Dagon, then their deity would also be called Dagon. Mehrunes Dagon. Of course, Mehrunes Dagon is also the Daedric prince responsible for the Oblivion crisis that is taking place in the Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion, where Hackdirt is found. Although the Deep Ones were found 88 years ago, so the timing doesn't really line up properly, but it is possible that the developers wanted to go for a very literal recreation of Shadow over Innsmouth, having both leaders of the Deep Ones named Dagon. Also, of course, the Bible of the Deep Ones is in Daedric runes, which makes sense provided you take it at face value and don't translate it to that crazy slowed text. And the second Daedric-based theory is probably the strongest of the theories. I have come up with this one myself, so a little bit biased, but I think it does have the most legs to stand on when all of the evidence is analysed. Although I admit it could still be wrong. I believe that the Deep Ones are Daedra or vampires under the command of Molag Bal, the prince of domination, vampirism, corruption, rape, and the enslavement of mortals. Molag Bal's main desires are to harvest and consume the souls of mortals, and to bring mortal souls into his sway by spreading seeds of strife and discord among the mortal realms. Which is exactly what is happening here. Hackdirt has been dominated by this cult worship of the Deep Ones. Its people have been enslaved into their service. Strife and discord was so prevalent in Hackdirt, it caused the town to be razed by the Imperial Legion. Molag Bal's traits run through Hackdirt and its history like tree roots. The language and the runes in the Bible of the Deep Ones being Daedric of course makes sense with Molag Bal, provided we don't translate it, provided we take the Bible of the Deep Ones at face value as a Daedric text. And if we remember when Jiv says,
"But there was a terrible price. Blood. And worse."
It makes sense with Molag Bal. If they are vampires in the service of Molag Bal, they would quite literally just want blood, and possibly thralls. Jiv also says,
"Those of us who've changed the most, we call the Brethren. Live down in the caves, to be nearer the Deep Ones. They don't like the sunlight much. Dangerous too. You'll want to avoid them if you can help it."
They don't like the sunlight much. That sure sounds like a vampiric trait to me. And the Brethren are also those who have changed the most, trying to be like the Deep Ones, spending their lives in the Hackdirt Caverns to be near the Deep Ones. Well, this would make complete sense if the Deep Ones were in fact vampires. And while the Brethren aren't vampires themselves, if they are trying to be like the Deep Ones, this would make sense as they are mimicking vampiric characteristics. Now, if the Deep Ones are Daedra in the service of Molag Bal, they would be harvesting souls for him. This theory would fit perfectly into this sentence.
"But there was a terrible price. Blood. And worse."
They want blood and worse. So far we haven't really found what the worst bit could be, unless of course, not only are they being sacrificed, but they are being sacrificed to Molag Bal, and having their souls enslaved. That would in fact be worse than blood, of course. So that scenario fits perfectly into what Jiv says. Now remember, Jiv tells us that Etira Moslin is the one who found the Bible of the Deep Ones and learnt the runes and teachings of the Deep Ones.
Etira, she's the one who found them old books, learned the runes, how to speak them again. But they want blood, she says, or they'll not help us.
When the people of Hackdirt all gather in the Chapel of the Brethren, she is the one who stands up at the podium and recites verses from the Bible. So out of anyone in Hackdirt, She undoubtedly has the best understanding of the Deep Ones. Keep that in mind for this. When we visit Etira Moslin, our disposition with her is 4. 4 out of 100. She really hates us. However, if we come back and speak to Etira Moslin again, while we are a vampire, as we can see here, my character's a vampire, her disposition towards us will be 100. She literally could not be more in love with us. Isn't that funny? She hates all outsiders unless, of course, we are a vampire, in which case her disposition maxes out. But who would love a vampire? Maybe someone who knows that Molag Bal created vampires, and who is fond of Molag Bal. Remember, she is the only one of the townsfolk who understands the runes in the Bible of the Deep Ones. She's the one with the knowledge. And she is the one who falls right in love with you as soon as you become a vampire. She either understands Molag Bal is the creator of vampires, or even better, she knows that the Deep Ones are a vampiric creature, therefore the sudden change of heart. The townsfolk also carry with them maces for weapons. Of course, when we think of Molag Bal, the mace of Molag Bal comes to mind straight away. A small detail I'm sure means nothing, but interesting nonetheless. Now, although this theory is pretty strong, what on earth would Daedra and all vampires be doing underground? It seems like a strange place for them to randomly be, lying dormant under a township, just waiting to be found. Well, I couldn't answer this. Until I visited Hackdirt and the surrounding area in the Elder Scrolls Online, which is set 800 years before the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. As we know from earlier on in the video, Hackdirt is just below the city of Coral, which, as we can see in the Elder Scrolls Online, has been shattered by these volcanic seams that appear to have erupted. Now, I checked the entirety of Cyrodiil, and the only place on the entire map that has broken earth and subterranean lava is Coral. It's a unique feature of the area, and during this time there were plenty of Daedra and vampires around. Why? Because Molag Bal was invading Tamriel at the time. Yes, that's right, our good old mate Molag Bal. Not only that, but Cyrodiil had a higher concentration of Daedra and minions of Molag Bal because the Imperial City was the center of attention. So during this time, where Molag Bal's minions were spread across Cyrodiil, Coral's grounds were shattered, granting access to the lava vents and natural caverns running underneath the surrounding area. And of course, what else is in the surrounding area? Hackdirt is. While the town itself is unaffected by the seismic fractures. As we can see on the map here, Coral and its open gateways to the underworld of the area are just down the road from Hackdirt. Molag Bal's minions could have easily been trapped or hidden intentionally underground during this time, while the earth was cracked open, infesting the subterranean layers surrounding the area. Again, the only place with access to the underground is Coral, and the only Daedra around at the time were those of Molag Bal. And the only place we find the Deep Ones is in the same area, and I have a heavy suspicion they are Daedra ruled by Molag Bal. So this entire sequence of events is a pretty damn suspicious one, if you ask me. And that, to me at least, is why the likelihood of the Deep Ones being Daedra and or vampires in the service of Molag Bal is the most likely theory. Again, at least that I could come up with. And of course, had evidence to back up. Lots and lots of evidence. But it does make it too damn difficult. I'm not brave enough to specify who the Deep Ones are just because we don't entirely know. So who are the Deep Ones and what do they want? Are they Dwemer, Sload, Daedra vampires? Who do they serve and what is it they want? Slaves, souls, blood, thralls? I suppose we'll only be able to draw our own conclusions and at least with the current evidence, we'll never truly know who the Deep Ones are or what they want. Although I highly suspect it's Molag Bal's minions, and from Hackdirt, they want dominance, discord, and an endless harvest of mortal souls. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed the journey, the mystery, and the unraveling of this complex and occult group of entities known as the Deep Ones. Be sure to let myself and others know what your theories and conclusions are as to who are the Deep Ones and what do they want. If you have any information, facts, evidence, speculation, theories, or anything to do with shedding some more light on the Deep Ones, be sure to leave a comment. If you have any ideas for something that you think should be covered in an Elder Scrolls Detective series video, be sure to let me know, or look into whatever strange and wonderful topics you present. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a kindness and leave a like, it makes the video look good. Leave a comment with your Elder Scrolls Detective ideas and your theories about the Deep Ones. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos similar to this one, please subscribe. It helps me know that people enjoy these kind of videos and in the long run will result in more of them. Be sure to click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button right here on YouTube so you are notified whenever a new Elder Scrolls Detective video is uploaded. And it's your lucky day, as other Elder Scrolls Detective video links can be found down in the description. Down there is also a link to my social medias, including Twitter and Patreon. Be sure to hit them up if you would like to support the channel. All my time and energy goes into making these videos for you, so your support is greatly appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. Feel free to check out the playlist on screen. Thanks for watching, thank you for supporting the channel, and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.